Here on the ground, change happens fast. Problems feel frequent and urgent. It's loud and anxiety runs high. From a satellite view, the Earth looks the same as it did thousands of years ago. We've been here before. Let's learn from our past and shoot for a better future.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, your host, speaking at you from Tuesday, August 26th, 2025 in the space and time continuum. Again, I'm delayed this week. Again, we were recording music, had Em and the Gems here in the studio, and then I was working with, the recordings that those guys made. That's the mode I was in. And again, I encourage you to do the things you love to do. We all need to stay sane in this crazy, dull headache. I guess, there are a lot of people who don't think it's a dull headache. There are a lot of people who think it's a hot mess, a scary feces show. I feel like it's a dull headache. The Trump thing is just going on and on. Longer than I thought, and longer than should be. And that's why, Sunday night and even last night, Monday night, I just didn't want to talk about any of this stuff. I didn't want to look into it. I know nothing huge happened except in Russia with the Ukraine-Russian war. Again, we're going to talk about that. And it's quite flummoxing and confusing and a little, I guess that's redundant, right? Flummoxing is a more colorful way of saying confusing. I should have left it at that. I don't know why Western press, and now the sources that I talk about, that I tell you to go check out on YouTube, I'll pull those out of my notebook here later in the show. But they're saying you're not going to hear any of this in Western media, and they're confused as well. They don't know why. Trump is lying about it. J.D. Vance is lying about it. Why? Trump is pretty much not talking about it anymore. Last week it was all I got to stop these people from dying so that I can go to heaven. I need to go to heaven, and they tell me I'm on the low on the totem pole. I can't do that voice anymore without coughing. It's becoming more and more toxic to my own body to imitate Donald Trump. Anyway, and remind me to stop saying anyway. I'm obviously just going off the top of my head here. I do have some notes. I did do some research. I did look into things. I'm not just I'm not going to waste your time, hopefully, right? The Epstein file thing, he's still trying to distract from it. Today, he had a 4-hour cabinet meeting that he wanted to be live on TV. I don't know if anyone stayed with it that long, but a lot of people watched it. And yes, it's all existing on video. One thing is that the worst clips didn't even include Robert Kennedy Jr. And he had a big part of the feces show is usually my segment, and this time I didn't even make the list. That's how bad it was. There was also another thing in the Oval Office yesterday, being Monday, where I can't remember who it is anymore. I think it's the police union guy. Head of the police union gave Trump all gold, of course. And that's not true. But they all say it's all solid gold. It's not. Nothing is solid gold. Maybe 1,000 years ago it was. But he gave him a badge with a key in it. And sir, this is the key. That it reminds me of the first scene in Godfather when the baker comes in and he wants to ask Don Corleone for a favor because his daughter got molested by some gang or something. And he's like, Don Corleone, I come to you today on your busy day while your daughter's being married. Don Corleone, I respect you. I respect what you've done in the city. You know, it's getting to be like that. And Trump's just sitting there going, oh, yeah. Yeah. And all of his cabinet members are like, okay, Christie, what do you got, Christie? Sir, I just want to first thank you for the privilege of working with you. It's been such an honor. It's like the first scene in The Godfather. It's also like all murderous dictators are treated. And that's what Donald Trump wants to be. He even is starting to say now, a lot of people say, you know, if you're keeping us safe, you can be a dictator if you want. A lot of people would like that. And his voice is almost morphing into the, you know, my son. They took my son, Sonny. They took my son. You know, it's morphing. Except he's an idiot. And this is why I don't want to get into it. It drives me crazy. I go to a dark place, and we were recording music, and that was not a dark place. Heidi said to the guys a couple of weeks ago when they first came to the studio, Heidi, who is Emmaline Muchmore. You don't need to know more details about that. It's irrelevant to what we talk about on this podcast, but the band is named Emma and the Gems because of Emmaline Muchmore. She said, yeah, you know, so much shit is going on in the world, and this is not that shit. Talking about the music and her band. And it's true. And again, reminding you to not let yourself go too deep into this crap. I'm trying to look into this stuff so that you don't have to. I'm trying to report to you the things that you're not going to hear on media. And the media is driving me absolutely crazy. MSNBC is so full of crap. And supposedly, they're the least full of crap out of all of the different corporate networks. But they're talking about everything as though it's normal. You know, they will say, what's going on with Donald Trump's hand? It seems like he's got some major health issues. But then they'll say, but we're stuck with him for the next 3.5 years. Really? Your story you just told is that he's going to die in 2 days. And then you say, oh, but we're stuck with him for 3.5 years. This is the point it's getting at. And it's just getting more and more stupid. It's obvious that America cannot sustain this BS that Donald Trump is purveying. It's obvious that his cabinet knows he's losing it. He's crazy. Who knows what it smelled like in that room for at least a couple of those 4 hours? This guy who's incontinent and has been for years. People who work with him have talked about it. And his hand is obviously got something like an intravenous thing they're trying to cover up. But really, are they? Are they trying to cover it up? One day he had just this side of black makeup on his hand. And the following day, he had just this side of completely white makeup on his hand. Neither of which obviously match the color of his skin. He's the president of the United States. Usually the president of the United States, if he was going to deceive everybody with makeup, would have the best makeup artists. And we're not even talking about his stupid orange head. You know, his ears are white. His face is orange. And these people think he's a tough guy? Oh, God. Okay. Yeah. All right. Again, we're going too far into the dark place. Which is why. And if you don't listen to this show this week, I don't blame you, because I came this close to, again, not even doing it this week. because it's kind of like, the weather's nice. I'm enjoying life. I'm doing things I want to do with my life. I hope you are as well. I don't really want to listen to Todd's thing this time. I'm going to take the week off. By the way, I am going to take next week off. I choose to do no labor on Labor Day. We're Heidi / Emmaline Muchmore and I are all three of us are going to get away next weekend. We're going to go to a secluded place and get away from it all. I'm going to try my hardest to not watch Midas Touch and all the sources that I look at. I'm going to read a book. That's what I'm going to do, I think. Anyway, I'm going to bring a guitar. And I hope, again, I can't encourage you enough. I won't keep repeating it, though. Where to go next? Let's see. Okay, you know what? We're going to come back and actually go through some actual tidbits of things that you did not hear about in mainstream media. And I'll start it off with the funniest, stupid, idiotic thing that Trump said at his cabinet meeting today. When we come back from a short break, you're listening to A Satellite View. We'll be right back. If you like the music you hear here, go to toddmickelson.com, push the music link. Go to our website, satelliteviewpodcast.com, and sign up to be on our emailer. And also find our YouTube channel by going to YouTube and search for Satellite View Podcast. You can find this and all of our shows in their entirety on video. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Todd Mikkelson. Let's get back into it here. We're going to switch gears a little bit, but I do want to point out Trump is talking about we're going to lower our prescription drugs. You go to London, or you go somewhere in Europe, and people are buying drugs. Not the nasty drugs, the good, the prescription drugs. We're going to lower the price, and we're not going to lower it by 50% or 75%. We're going to lower it by 1,500%. And nobody calls him out on it. All of his sycophant cabinet members just sit there and let him talk and make a complete idiot out of himself. Are they sabotaging him at this point? Is nobody stopping him because they all just wish this would crumble? He really is. One of the biggest issues this week, even longer than this last week, was people talking about, is he dying? A lot of headlines. Is Trump dying? Of course, Trump hits at it because he's saying, I need to end this war so I can go to heaven. If you lower the price of something by 1,500%, that means that when you buy that thing, you get paid how much? 15 times more than it cost. If something costs, am I going to really try and do math? If something costs $1 and you lower the price of it by 1,500%, that means that when you buy it, you receive $15 back. I don't know math very well, but I know enough math to know that you cannot lower the price of anything more than 100%. And if you lower the price of something 100%, it becomes free. And Donald Trump, he thinks he's going to lower the price of things by 1,500%. Okay, Don, are you going to pay us right out of your pocket then when we buy that thing? Oh, my God. My God. Now, I talked last week about September 3rd. I wasn't positive it was September 3rd, but it turns out it is September 3rd. So in a week and a half or something like that is going to be this press conference on Capitol Hill, on the steps of the Capitol. Last week I said the victims are going to be there. They're being given the chance by both Republican and Democratic House members are having a press conference, and actually 10 of the Epstein/Trump victims will be speaking at that press conference. And I said last week again, these are grown women now. They're no longer 13-year-old Trump rape victims. And yes, I'm going to say Trump rape victims because we know from testimony, from sworn testimony, that there's at least one 13-year-old girl who testified under oath that she was raped by Donald Trump. And the details she went into are horrific. Horrific. This guy is the worst monster you can imagine. I mean, I need to get it back out of my head, but that young girl is now a grown woman who's looking for justice. Now, she's unidentified. I hope she's not one of the many who committed suicide because of the trauma that Donald Trump and or others inflicted on these little girls. I hope she's one of the 10 victims that speaks at the press conference. But these women, they're revealing themselves. They're not looking for protection like the Republicans keep saying, well, we can't release the Epstein files because we need to protect the victims. The victims want justice. They're done with protection. They wanted protection back when they thought they were going to get justice within a couple years. And then Epstein was let off in 2008. And these turning into women at the time were devastated. Some of them enough that they committed suicide in the ensuing years, right up until at least one known suicide of a woman who was 41 years old by this time, earlier this year. She was working in the Mar-a-Lago spa, where Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein recruited her to be trafficked into having sex with other old, gross men. And even if the men aren't old and gross, it's still rape. It is still rape and human trafficking. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of such crimes. And these women have publicly said she is a monster. Ghislaine Maxwell is a monster, and Donald Trump is probably going to pardon her. You may have heard about the transcripts and now actual audio recordings of Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's personal lawyer, interviewing Ghislaine Maxwell in prison a few weeks ago, where she obviously was smart enough to say, no, Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong. He was a perfect gentleman. He's great. He's lovely. He's wonderful. Because she is looking for a pardon from him. But on page 318 to about page 320, she implicates his cabinet members. She says, these guys, I don't know if they were looking for this. I don't know if they were, paying for sex and things like that. I don't know. But, a lot of them were really high-level people. Some of them are in your cabinet. She said that to Todd Blanche, who is the Deputy Attorney General in the United States Department of Justice. Ghislaine Maxwell also included that little shot over the bow. Hey, if I don't get my pardon, I do know that members of your cabinet were some of these people that we're speaking of here. I want to talk about another thing proving that Donald Trump is an absolute disgusting monster. He's not a human being. In the Reagan era, there was legislation passed and the Congress put forth money, and there's also grants. There's United States government grants. It was called the Victims of Crimes Act. And I'll read a little bit. As soon as Trump took office, he set the wheels in motion for federal agencies to withhold federal funds illegally from state and local governments that defy him on a range of issues. One of those issues was immigration. On July 21st, the Justice Department's Office for Victims of Crime added new conditions for grants to assist crime victims. By law, the Victims of Crime Act, the federal government must disperse allocated money to the states for a variety of expenditures aimed at helping crime victims. Some of that aid goes to help children who've been sexually abused escape their abusers. The money pays for shelter, relocation, hotlines, rape crisis centers, prevention programs, legal advocacy, and more. Trump is denying victims of sexual abuse help if you don't go along with him being a Nazi, kidnapping United States citizens off the streets and throwing them into concentration camps that he's trying to build across our country, just like Adolf Hitler did in the late 30s and 40s of the 20th century. This is how much of a vile, disgusting piece of human feces this non-human is. All right, now, again, confused as to why the American media, or all of Western media, really is not reporting on what's going on in Russia. Money transfer restrictions. If you live in Russia, you can go to a cash machine, an ATM, to get your money out, and it'll say, no, we can't do it at this time. You need to pick a different time to do it. Or there's a limit. You can only take, $10. They're also putting limits on things like small loans. It's sort of like using a credit card for buying something like a microwave oven or something. And they won't honor it. It's your credit card. And they won't let you use credit. So now a lot of Russians are using their credit card to buy something like that, and they're not paying the credit card back because it's like, hey, they're taking my money from me at the ATM, so I'm going to keep this money that I borrowed off of my credit card. It's getting really scary for people in Russia. Most people are trying to leave, and they can't anymore. And that started weeks ago, more than months ago. Especially men, they won't let them leave because they want to. They're short of soldiers. By the way, the Russian soldiers, they're not fighting for the loyalty of the country or even Putin. They're just wanting to get paid. And now they're starting to threaten to kill each other because everybody's so desperate because the economy is tanking. Flights, not just in outer places of Russia, but in Moscow and St. Petersburg, the two most, crowded cities in the country, flights are canceled because of Ukraine blowing things up. There are explosions going on in Moscow and St. Petersburg, and there are drones flying all over the place. They have canceled hundreds of flights, and people are stuck in the airports, and they can't leave. 4 villages in Donbass were taken back by the Ukrainians on their big celebration day of freedom, which was on Saturday. And still, the Ukrainian soldiers were working their asses off, and they kicked the Russian soldiers out and took back 4 of their villages that the Russians were holding. The Crimea Bridge is shut down and blocked. Crimea is being attacked a huge military base in Russia was attacked. An oil refinery in Russia, I don't know if it's still on fire, but it was burning for at least 4 days, last I heard, from these people in Ukraine who are doing this reporting. What else? Yeah, explosions in Moscow and St. Petersburg, and explosions in Moscow right by the main military headquarters. And one of their main generals was put into a coma. Ukraine is hitting really close to the heart of the military in Russia. Western outlets are not reporting on this. And listen to last week, my podcast from last week. I did an update of what was going on that week. And this is in addition to all of that. They have oil refineries being blown up, shut down. They have oil pipelines shut down. Last week I said Russia, and now it's going into September as well, they will disallow any exporting of gasoline to other countries. So it's starting to affect other countries in Europe. It's starting to affect the outside world. Putin is afraid he's going to get assassinated. And he's got direct resistance within his own country. It's not just the Ukrainian military who's invading parts, blowing stuff up. If you go to Anna from Ukraine, ANNA from Ukraine, go to Jason J. Smart. These are all on YouTube. Go to the military show and go to RFU News, and they report on all of these things. And you can see, I always make sure that there's more than one source, and these are only 4 sources. I have found more since then, and they're all congruent. They're reporting on the same things. And some are reporting on things that others aren't, and vice versa. This is the real news going on. It sounds very much like Ukraine in the last 2 to 3 weeks, or maybe 4 weeks, has begun to absolutely decimate Russia and the Russian military. And Russia, their economy is collapsing. They don't have access to energy. They cannot get supplies to their frontline troops. They're having to move some frontline troops to other places of the front line because they're being ran out of places by Ukraine, which means some of those front lines are less fortified, which means Ukraine will probably take that back. Ukraine has been doing a superb job of planning. There are so many stories. There are so many stories where Ukraine sort of let Russia go into a town, and then Ukraine was slowly surrounding that town without Russia knowing it. It's like a long-term, weeks-long plan. So then Russia's in that town and they're completely surrounded. I told you last week they took anywhere from 1,300 to 2,000 Russian soldiers and either captured them, killed them. A lot of Russian soldiers are surrendering. A lot of them are just signing up to be in the military, going to Ukraine and immediately surrendering because they know it's a death sentence to be in the Russian military right now. That's what's going on. You won't hear that. So do go to YouTube. We really do need to have our final media shift. I swear to God, corporate-owned media in the United States is going to completely go out of business. And it's going to happen quickly. I haven't even talked about more and new information coming out about the stealing of the 2024 presidential election. I haven't even touched on that this episode, but there is more information, a lot of numbers in North Carolina. Go to electiontruthalliance.org and you can find those details and details about most now of the swing states and how they are trying to get reanalysis, recounts. There's another big story about the thing we talked about with that they actually know they have receipts and proof. about the fact that Donald Trump did not win, and it was a devastating loss. I'll talk about that next time. It might not be for 2 weeks. I'm definitely not going to record next weekend. Maybe I'll record later in the week, depending on what all is going on. I'm realizing now that there is a lot to talk about because this new information about Trump stealing and Elon Musk really being the final linchpin that made it work in the 2024 presidential election. So we'll talk about that next time. I'm going through things in my head and I'm realizing I felt like there wasn't enough to talk about to do a show. I realized there's way too much to talk about in a, 35 to 40 minute show. So, and I thank you so much for listening. Remember, we all have to stick together. We all have to stay sane and strong for the people who really are being affected by Donald Trump's Nazi regime. That's up to us. We have to stick together. We have to go to the rallies. We have to inform each other. So use this information to inform people. Let's all stick together and work to bring this Nazi regime down and set things back to right. And start thinking right now about what can be different, because Kamala Harris herself told us the system is broken. I don't want to be a part of that system anymore. We need a new system, is what she's insinuating at the very least. And it's up to you and me, as she has said. It's up to the people to decide what kind of America they want. She's talking about us. She's talking about her and us, because she's with us. She's here with us. She's with you. She's with me. I'm with you, and I thank you for being with me on this week's show. I will speak at you next week.
You've been listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mikkelson. Go to toddmikkelson.com for links and more information.